Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you gentlemen for being here. General Dunford, it's always an honor to have the top uniform officer in the United States before us, and so I'm going to direct my questions to you since I only have 5 minutes. And I'd like to first ask you a question we've been asking all of our officers before us. Did you submit your written remarks to anyone for approval or review other than someone under your direct command before you had to come before us?
Congressman, I did submit my remarks to the Office of Secretary of Defense as well as Office of Management and Budget. No changes were made in my written remarks as a result of that review.
Now, one of the things that I heard you just say in response to the chairman was you said that your readiness concerns were based on an unstable fiscal environment. And one of the concerns I always have, we wrestle with in this committee, is simply this. When we look at whether strategy is driving the budget or the President's budget or whether the President's budget is driving strategy, the question is which one of them are predominant? Is it the strategy that's predominant in driving the President's budget, or is it the President's budget that is predominant in driving the strategy?
Congressman, I think this year it's fair to say that within the top line that we were given,
for the last several years, just as a rule, is it the strategy that's more predominant in driving the budget or the budget that's more predominant in driving the strategy?
Yeah, I would say if you go back to the last few years and particularly look at sequestration in 2013, the fiscal environment has had a bigger impact.
So then when we've constantly asked people that have come in here, many people from the Pentagon saying that the budgets are in line with the strategy, then what you're saying is basically that it's been the budget that's been driving our strategy.
Congressman, let me, if I can give you just a little bit of a nuanced answer. Here's what I'm confident in saying. Today, we have a defense strategy calls for us to defeat an enemy, to deny another adversary, to protect the homeland, as well as deal with violent extremism. I'm confident in FY17 that we'll be able to do that.
All right, then let me ask you this. I don't mean to cut you off. I only have 3 minutes. I'm looking at a document here that was signed by President Obama on January 3rd, 2012, for the defense guidance. And he says specifically in here, this guidance was requested to guide the spending over the coming decade. Then I have it signed on January 5th, the defense guidance by Secretary Panetta. And this is what over and over again people have been coming in here pointing to and saying this has been directing their spending. And then we had in 2014 the Quadrennial Defense Review. Over and over again, people have sat where you are sitting and have said that this has guided the spending of the Department of Defense. Has the Department of Defense been following the President's guidelines and been basing their spending on these two documents?
We have, Congressman, but what we've been doing is living year to year and deferring modernization that's going to cause a bill in the out years.
And I understand that. Now let me ask you this, because these documents are based on certain assumptions. Did either of these two documents account for the rise of ISIL?
They did not.
Did either of these two documents assume that U.S. forces will no longer be in Iraq and Afghanistan?
They did not.
And in fact, we do have forces still in Iraq and Afghanistan. Did either of these two documents assume that we would reset our relationship with Russia and that we would be able to cooperate with them?
We did not foresee Russia's current actions in those.
So the assumptions made for these two documents were not correct with the Russians.
With regard to Russia, that is correct.
Did either of these two documents count for China's aggressive behavior in the South China Sea?
Not to the extent that we've seen it, Congressman.
Now, with that, wouldn't it be fair to say if the assumptions that these documents were based upon were invalid or wrong, that the strategy would also have been invalid or wrong?
The strategy, it needs to be refined, and we're in the process of doing that. That's correct.
And also, General Odierno, when I asked him that question right after these were put into place, he said, we struggle to even meet one major contingency operation. It depends on assumptions, and I believe some of the assumptions that were made are not good assumptions. They're unrealistic and very positive assumptions. Yet these are the two documents that helped guide the President's budget in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. So wouldn't it be fair, General, for us to say that instead of just the unstable physical environment, that a big part of the reason we're in the current situation we're in is because the President's strategies were based on faulty assumptions?
This year, Congressman,
I'm talking about the last several years leading up to this. This year's budget's not putting us in the situation that the Chairman talked about.
If you're asking, did we foresee the current conflict with ISIL or Russia?
Wouldn't it be fair to say that rather than just physical instability, that the reason we're in the problem is because of a faulty strategy. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I know my time's up and I yield back.